Hi, my name is Ryan Baxter, and I'm a Senior Executive Research and Development Chef for Kraft Foodservice, part of our larger culinary team. One of the things that I am here today to talk to you about is a concept that I learned when I was a young student at the Culinary Institute of America, but also learned and sort of developed as I became more experienced in our profession. This is a concept about balancing textures and flavors, and it's a very important concept to learn at any time in your career. I'd like to show that to you today by illustrating a composed salad that I'd like to show you that has those elements, and also talk to you about how it might apply more broadly to a menu and certainly to things like a dessert course, which is one of the things we're going to show you today as well. So the CIA put out a book a couple of years back called Garde Manger, The Art and Craft of the Cold Kitchen. Really, what we've learned as chefs over the years is that people are interested in food that really has contrast. And we're going to talk about some of those contrasts. Some that are listed here, which are really important ones, are contrasts of temperature. So for example, it's not unusual to take something cold or frozen, put it on a plate, and contrast that with something warm or hot. And that contrast or that juxtaposition of hot and cold really makes food interesting. Obviously, it needs to taste good, but that's one of those examples. I talked about crisp as well and soft. And as a general observation, if you have something soft on the plate, almost always you're going to want to have something crisp. Some sort of crostini, some sort of cracker, some sort of crispy element that will give contrast and balance to that item. So you see that example as well. One other example is rich and lean. Many times you have a dish that we love richness, right? We love the fattiness of ribs, right? Pork ribs or beef ribs, they have all that fat. Prime ribs, another really good example. So when you get those rich components, and even though we love them and our brain says keep eating, one of the things that we look for is some way to cut that richness. And in many cases, get rid of that richness by something acidic, which kind of cuts through that fat, adds balance, and allows us to keep eating and keep enjoying that item. So that's another good example there. And again, there are many here. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to continue as we build the salad. All right? All right, so let's begin with our salad today. And I've prepared in advance a number of things. And again, keeping in mind some of those things I mentioned about contrast and balance and all of those things that make food interesting, we're going to build a very simple salad today. And I've done some mise en place or preparation in advance, which we all do as chefs. And I'm going to put on a pair of food service gloves because I'll be handling food that is not meant to be, not going to be heated any further. And I'm going to do a really simple salad that hopefully illustrates the concepts that I've been talking about. So in my bowl, I have some frisee lettuce. And keep this in mind, I've chosen some very beautiful lettuces for this presentation based on their textures and their flavors and their colors. But really, any kinds of grains could really work in this type of presentation. I also took some bacon earlier in the day. This is our Oscar Mayer brand of bacon. And I did what we chefs call making lardons, right? Little crisp bits of bacon. And again, this is a crispy element that gives texture. It also gives smokiness. And I'm going to put a little bit of that Oscar Mayer crisp bacon in there as well. Because it's one of the great contributions, and they happen to be in season right now, I took some apples. This one happens to be Honeycrisp. And I diced them small dice, and I put them in there as well. So you can begin to see those are crisp elements, and those are some refreshing elements, particularly the apples as well. I took a little bit of carrots, which we cut on one of those Japanese machines, and got it to a nice little curl. And then we have some Kraft zesty Italian dressing. Now, one of the things I did, what we call +1 here, is we took our base food service Kraft zesty Italian dressing, and we often add things to it to change its character, to sort of give it ethnic variation, to just make it different and give much flexibility to food service operators and restaurant people like yourselves. And what I did is I took the fat that came off of the rendered bacon and I added it to the dressing, and it gives that nice smokiness, and it's also a nice way to use some of that leftover fat in a place that your guests would expect, and it makes sense to the dish, and that's important. So I'm going to take a little bit of dressing, and as you know, one of the things that's very important about salad making is that we Do not overdress them, right? They're dressed just appropriately, but not more dressed than they need to be, and certainly not swimming in liquid. Our dressing is already seasoned, but I think a little bit of kosher salt or some salt is helpful as well. And we're going to take that and we're going to give it a little bit of a toss. Now again, I think you can see here that visually we have just some interesting lettuces. We have some interesting garnishes. We have a very flavorful lettuce. We've got lightly dressed greens, and we're going to set that aside for just a second. Earlier today, I cleaned some of this beautiful red leaf lettuce, and I'm going to take a few of these pieces, and we're going to take that, and we're going to drop that down as a base right here as well. I'm going to take a leaf or two of this beautiful green lettuce, and I think I might actually just put that right on the bottom here. Give that a little base. And then the other thing I did earlier today is we took a little crostini. Now again, remember back to our balance wheel that we talked about a moment ago. Adding a crisp element on a salad is almost always something you're going to see. And that could take the place of something like this, which is a beautiful, elegant little crostini, which is just a piece of bread cut on a bias, some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and baked until it's crisp. Could be made on a grill as well. Could be a crouton that you purchase and use in your operation. Very well work to that same effect. We're going to lay that down on there as well. And then one of the other things we did is that we took some goat's cheese, which is one of my favorite things, and to that goat's cheese we had some Philadelphia brand cream cheese and a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and some herbs. I think in this case I have some basil and some oregano and a little bit of salt. And I have a pastry bag here with a star tip. And I'm going to fill that pastry bag with this herb mixture. And this is just another way. Now, in this case, as you all know, goat's cheese is a creamy element, right? So one of the things we're trying to do here is we're going to try to add a creamy element to this dish. So I did what pastry chefs call a rosette. I'm going to drop that little rosette there. And then also earlier today, I took some of these tomatoes. Now, I wanted to talk to you about tomatoes. If you can see here, I've taken some tomatoes which were not entirely in season right now, but you know, tomatoes are available really all year round in most parts of the country. But I generally try not to use tomatoes in their fresh, raw state unless they're really ripe and they're really in season and they're really perfect and pristine. When they're not, which is much of the rest of the year, one of the things I try to do to increase their flavor and maximize that intensity is to oven dry them. So in this case, all I've done here is I've taken some extra virgin olive oil, salt, and Italian spices, a little bit of pepper, and I put them on a sheet pan, and I baked them in the oven very slow for about an hour or until they reduced by about half. That is an excellent way to take a product, even if it's not at the perfect degree of ripeness or it's not exactly in season, and really concentrate its flavor and utilize it in a way that is very, very tasty and very, very flavorful. By the way, this also serves as a very nice little way you can make an hors d'oeuvre for a cocktail reception. That works as well. So our last piece to do is we had our salad here, and we've kind of let it macerate just for a small amount of time. And we're going to take these greens and we're going to drop that green right there. And then one of the things that is very common when you have garnish like this left in the bowl is those heavier pieces tend to fall to the bottom. And one of the things we want to do for our guests is just to let the guests know that you have those components in there and put them on top. Now, this salad could very well be served on its own as a simple salad for any really restaurant application, even banquet applications. We'll clean that up a little bit. One way to sort of add to this presentation, and we're going to show you that as well, is that earlier today we took a piece of fresh salmon, and we took a piece of salmon and we basically just seared the salmon, and we're going to add it either cold or you could really even add it warm. And if your desire is to sort of make it into perhaps a more upscale presentation or make it to a dish that you can get some additional money for, this is a really good way to add protein and bring that dish up to one other place. And that's our plate for today. It's our composed salad with herb goat's cheese, an oven-dried tomato. We have a frisee greens with diced apples, some rendered bacon, and we served it with some pan-seared salmon. And it's an example of how you build in and find contrast and make food interesting using the contrast wheel that we've talked about. So here at Kraft, we love to make our cheesecake using our either Philadelphia cream cheese or our ready-to-bake cream cheese batter, which is a new product for us, which is very successful and that our customers love. Earlier today, our pastry chef baked a cheesecake, and we sliced it after it was firm enough, and then we froze the slice. And in order to sort of add, how could we add that contrast and balance that I've been talking about, we took some sheets of phyllo dough, and we layered them together, buttered each layer, and again, you're probably familiar with that technique from making hors d'oeuvre, and we wrapped the cheesecake, the frozen slice of cheesecake, in phyllo dough, and we baked it in a fast oven from frozen. And it really only takes a few minutes. This is a fun way to take cheesecake to a whole nother level, and again, it's an example of what our pastry chef does and some of our other team members do, and it adds to our point contrast. So we know cheesecakes to be very creamy, right? This adds a phyllo or pastry layer that's crispy and flaky, and it's one more way to sort of add balance, add contrast, and add interest in the way we just discussed. So we baked that a little bit earlier. We've allowed it to cool, and that could be a step you could easily do in your restaurants. And I'm going to put on a pair of food gloves again because I'll be handling the dish without cooking it any further. And I'm going to take a little cheesecloth and 10x sugar, and I'm going to put a little 10x. And you know, I have a rule of thumb. The Ryan Baxter rule of thumb says that almost all desserts look better with 10x sugar on top of them, and I may be wrong about that, but I think it's true. And we're going to take that and we're going to place it on the plate like this. Very simple. And we made a little bit of whipped cream earlier today, so we're going to just pipe a little sort of pattern of cream on there. And then we have some strawberries, which I'm going to place a little strawberry right there. We have a few blueberries, which I think we can dot the plate with. And then, again, with the help of our pastry chef, she put together a very nice strawberry sauce, which I apply with a squeeze bottle. And you could see how this concept of contrast, balance, alternate textures really work, and even things like desserts. Thanks for watching. For more recipes and ideas, go to kraftfoodservice.com.